dreamers, and welcome back to PERLA'S DREAMS. Cancer. Let's see. All right. Okay. All right, let's see. Yeah, I just noticed that I didn't fill your water all the way. There, and again, a lot of these things I don't do intentionally. Well, I do intentionally, but not consciously at the moment, if that makes sense. So looking at your water just from the fact that it's like not even filled all the way, there seems to be an internal struggle this month with, am I doing enough? Am I enough? What am I doing? There seems to be this selling yourself short, whether it's romantically, whether it's career wise or something of that matter. Um, the funny thing is, well, it's not really funny, but it is coming in that sense, is that some of you are trying to put up a front, that everything is okay, or that you're okay, or that everything is kind of like cool, the best it's ever been, and it's like you're plagued with this energy of like, am I doing enough? Am I enough? Is what I keep on hearing. Um, some of you are getting stuck in this space of like reevaluating, or like revisiting, I should say, not evaluating, because if you were evaluating it, I feel like it would be more in an energy that like kind of passes by. It's like, okay, yeah, I learned from that. But some of you are getting stuck in the space of like what you did in the past, or the wrongs that you did, and I say them like that because it's like you can't go back in time and change what was done, what was said. It is done and it is said, and now how do we move forward from that? And whether it is you yourself that are bringing yourself back into the space, or maybe there is somebody in your space, right? Whether it's a significant other or a family member of whatever kind, that is kind of like trying to force you to relive your past mistakes. Does that make sense? So, and again, these are general readings, guys. So if it's not for you, it's not for you. Um, but there is this space of like, okay, you may have you may have been in a long-term relationship, and you slipped and you cheated, and your significant other decided to forgive you, and now all of a sudden all they're doing is throwing that in your face. It's like, oh, you cheated. Like, it doesn't matter what the argument is about, it doesn't matter what the conversation is about, they need to throw this in your face. And it's like, wait, like, we all make mistakes, we all do things that we wish we could take back. I did it, I sincerely apologize, I haven't done it since, so why are you still throwing this in my face, right? And again, it doesn't necessarily has to be cheating. It could be like, you know, you you didn't take 2 weeks off when your significant other gave birth to your child because you needed the money, and then they were like, oh, you said you were going to take the time off and you did it. It's kind of like something that on in their eyes you fell short, right? And now they are using that against you every moment that they can. And then this is spiraling into the space of like, now you're second guessing or you're questioning all of your past decisions. And that is the space where it needs to stop. Because, excuse me, reevaluating our past so that we can see how far we've come, to see how much we've grown, is a beautiful thing. But when we are revisiting the past to kind of knock ourselves down, or somebody's trying to knock ourselves down through it, it's like, oh, no, we're not doing that, right? So you have to be very careful this month not to allow that when somebody throws your past mistakes to you, that you're internalizing that, and then you're going with that and spiraling out of control within that space. So like, for like, okay, I'm trying to think of like something that I did that was like really really bad, and somebody like till this day still throws in my face. Oh, when I was like a teenager, I had a fight with somebody, and the person ended up in the hospital. And to this day, this person throws it in my face, and this is a sibling, and I'm like, well, yeah, that was effed up on my end, but it happened. It hasn't happened since. I mean, you've challenged me since, like after that, but it didn't happen again, right? And there were obviously like more to that dynamic of how the person ended up in the hospital. But I was challenged on something. I went forth, and things didn't go like as a playful thing as it was supposed to. It ended up in a really bad situation, and for a really long time I blamed myself for allowing myself to get that out of control, right? And every time that image would come back to mind, I would blame myself, like, how did I have no self-control of myself at that moment in time? And I think I was like 16, or no, I was 16, or no, I was 17 at the time. And now when I look at it, it's like, wow, I'm not that person anymore. I now have that self control. That even if I'm challenged to do something, or even if somebody tries to persuade me into doing something that I don't want to do, I can stand on my own 2 feet and be like, no, I'm not going to do that. And that is when I reevaluate that space in my life. That is what I look at, like, oh, I'm not there anymore. But just because a person brings it up, I'm not gonna go into the space like, oh yeah, I was so messed up. Oh my god, I am such a horrible person. No, that was who I was at that moment in time. That is what I chose to do at that moment in time. That is not who I am at this moment. So yes, in a sense, like our past experiences define us in a way, and the way that I like to look at it is like they define us by what we have learned and how we have grown from those experiences, right? So just because you have done something, or you've done things in the past that you're not proud of, doesn't mean that you have to continue on with the same storyline. And that's kind of like where this month, anytime you yourself are bringing things up from the past, or bringing up your shortcomings, or someone outside of you is doing this to you, you need to put a stop to it. As far as like, how are you going to respond to that? Are you going to allow yourself to be dragged back into the space of like, I'm like this horrible person? Because you're not. And that kind of seems to be like, and I say unfortunately because it's like a lot of you are getting stuck in this loop of like really coming after yourself, which kind of sucks. So if anything, take from this reading that you have the power to change that. You have the power not to allow it to impact you in that way. You have the power to allow this to be a positive, a positive thing in your life, in the sense that you can now look at it by reevaluating and being like, oh yeah, I'm not that person anymore. I'm so happy. I'm so glad I've come this far. I've come along from this destructive person, or this whatever person. There's just, for some reason, your reading seems to be just stuck in the past. In the past, um, for some of you, if it's not something necessarily that you have done to others, maybe there is a past, and I want to say that this is probably like for a handful of you, there is a past trauma that keeps on coming up, that you may have suppressed, or you may have pushed aside because you were not ready to deal with it, but it keeps on coming up because it is time for you to heal from this trauma, so that you can get yourself out of this space of like lack, or this space of like you're not enough, or you're not worthy. There's something here about trauma, whether it was that you were like in an abusive relationship, whether this was like physically or emotionally, but there is, and this could have been romantically or platonically. You may have had a parent that physically abused you, or emotionally abused you, or whatever it is, but there is a space of like, maybe all these memories, all these things are coming back up, and they're not coming up to remind you that you're worthless, or to remind you that you are this trash or anything like that, but instead it's coming up because you are emotionally capable of healing from this at this moment in time. And whether that is that you need to get a therapist, whether that is that you need to journal, whether that is that you have to go down more of a spiritual route, whatever that is going to be different from every single one of you. But I would shy away from trying to suppress this, or shy away from trying to push it aside, and instead ask spirit, ask God, be like, you know what, how can I heal from this? Like, where do I start? And allow that process to finally begin for you. All right, let's go ahead and let's see. Let's get an oracle card as your last message. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of like burden, a lot of burden, and a lot of things like burden from things from the past is what I want to say. Graveyard. There is a song that bellows in the peace of knowing no end, in acknowledging the crossroads of eternity. This is the season of the witch. What page is this then? Graveyard, 92. Page 92. The graveyard card will help you find peace with where you are. There are times when we will face the difficult situation that are beyond your control. Those are the times that we must surrender to our current place. There is no use in fighting a battle you've already lost. Take control over the one thing you can change, yourself. The situation you are inquiring about is no longer in your hands. The powers that be have taken over. Often we are faced with a challenging ending that is necessary to facilitate a bright new beginning. So when we think about it, things that occurred in the past traumas and things like that, they are no longer in your control. Those are things that already happened. Those are things that you've already experienced. But what you can change is how you now continue to connect to it. Now, are you continually connecting to that past trauma from a victim mentality, or are you choosing to look at it from a survival, from a space of like, you know what, yes, this happened, yes, I was in this situation, yes, this is how I felt, but I am no longer physically in that space. I am no longer physically going through that. And I want to make peace with it. So how do I make peace with it? And again, for everybody, it's going to be different depending, not necessarily on what kind of trauma it was, but how your body reacts to trauma, how your body responds to trauma. For some people, talking it out with a therapist, just having a space to be able to speak to somebody is enough. For others, you need more of a spiritual guidance. You need more of a spiritual connection to feel like you're being held by the universe, like you're being held by spirit. And you have to figure out what that outlet is going to be for you so that you can finally move away from a space where this is no longer controlling the dialogue, excuse me, of your life, or where it is that you're heading to. Well, guys, that is all that I have. As always, thank you for all your love and support. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing to the channel. And if you haven't done so, go ahead and do so. Sending every single one of you love, strength, and blessing, guys. Take care. Love you all. Mwah. Bye-bye.